Hey guys, welcome back. I recently saw a post by Omar Isuf about his overhead press, and there was an interesting question in the comments asking what he did for his personal shoulder mobility, and Omar responded, "Nothing, just a lot of overhead press." And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think it really reflects where I'm at as a coach and as an athlete mobility wise. At this point in my time of being in the fitness space and coaching and lifting, I've been around long enough to kind of see some trends come and go. And so I wanted to talk you through my personal experience with mobility and some of my thoughts on it. And hopefully it'll help you get a better perspective on the role that mobility plays for you as an athlete. Years back when I first started to focus on the squat, bench, and deadlift specifically, CrossFit was still really hot and kind of in its prime, and Kelly Starrett was the man when it came to mobility and what to do to increase your mobility. So for a while, I followed him in his material pretty religiously, spending a lot of time focusing on perfecting little tiny things like trying to get my knees to track perfectly over the center of my foot and making sure the internal and external rotation of certain joints reached a extent that I thought was going to help me be a better lifter and things like that. And probably after a year or more of following his material, I noticed that I didn't really see any major changes. My technique was overall still kind of the same, and my mobility was kind of about the same. And so I started to So a combination of me not really seeing any huge difference in my lifting in the gym and a changing of trends as far as what was popular in the fitness community and new research was coming out and stuff like that, I really started to shift away from that mentality that your mobility has to be perfect and that should be a priority, and that you can't have any deviation in form, and if all these little idiosyncrasies aren't perfect, then you're going to have these catastrophic injuries. And with my clients, I started to spend less and less time having them do mobility drills and stretches and things like that before the main lifts, and had them start focusing more on getting into the positions that they wanted to be better at and have better mobility in. So if I had a client who claimed that they had trouble with their ankle mobility, instead of doing all these drills and all these warm-ups, I would essentially just have them do more warm-up sets where I had them focus on driving their knees forward a little bit more than they normally would, and session after session, rep after rep, having them slowly adjust the bar higher and higher, have their position be more and more upright, and have their knees come forward more and more in very slow and incremental ways. We just worked them into the position that they wanted to be more mobile in. So while I haven't completely thrown out all mobility drills and stretching and things like that, it's very, very rare that I use that with a client, even with a client who has severely limited mobility. I will, for the most part, just have them perform the exercise in a position and with a technique that they're able to attain safely and without pain. And then we'll slowly work them into the position we want them to be in, whether it's having a better overhead position or having a better squat position. And once we've obtained that range of motion that we want, whether it takes a week or 2 weeks or 3, then we make them strong in that new range of motion, and that's what's going to help them keep that new range of motion, in my opinion. So if you want to get a better high bar squat position or a better overhead press position, you need to be getting into that range of motion that challenges your mobility at least twice a week, I would say, and getting strong in that range of motion that you are weak at. So while I'm definitely not an expert on it, and the experts I think are still debating over a lot of these issues and the research about what's effective and what's not effective, I think your best bet if you want to increase your mobility on a lift, is to just practice the lift with a load that you can handle without hurting yourself. So whether it's an overhead press, high bar squat, a snatch, a clean, whatever, take the bar and work on getting into those positions that challenge your mobility, and do a lot of warm-up sets, getting into that new range of motion that you struggle with. And eventually that's what's going to build your flexibility, and in my opinion, a lot more effectively than just stretching or doing mobility drills. And then once you're able to effectively get into those positions that you want to be in with those light weights, then you can start adding weight slowly and getting strong in that new range of motion. One of the other reasons I wanted to make this video is because I still hear a lot of people who are just getting into lifting hyper focusing on mobility and talking about, oh, my knee needs to go over my second toe instead of my third toe when I'm squatting, or my internal shoulder rotation is only 30 degrees when it needs to be 35, and things like that. And focusing on mobility to an extent that is just not necessary to be a successful athlete, or, in my opinion, to be healthy and live a healthy lifestyle. If you can complete your main and accessory lifts with a good full range of motion consistently without any pain, that's most likely going to cover a lot of the mobility demands that you're going to need to live a healthy, normal, everyday life. So while mobility is definitely important, and I'm not trying to make it seem like it's not, I would say the majority of your mobility work should be just you practicing good form and getting into the positions that you want to be in with light weights, and then getting strong in those new ranges of motion, and not focusing on little tiny details like if your toes are externally rotated to the proper degree and things like that. It's important to remember that everybody's different, so everybody's mobility needs are going to be a little bit different, but I think that's a good place to start for most people. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully that was helpful, and I will catch you next time.